Warm greetings and thank you so much, Amita, for agreeing to do this conversation on women in architecture. So before I invite you for the conversation, let me just quickly tell you what this is exactly about. The whole idea to do this conversation, is to understand the journey of women in the field of built environment, many facets of architecture for that matter. And the approach taken is autoethnography. So it's like your biography and my pen. And the objective to do this work is to really acknowledge and appreciate the contribution women have made in the field of built environment. Because we have seen for a long time that the field is very patriarchal, I must say. And one of the things which has come out from my literature studies is that many times women are not documenting their work and not disseminating enough for even the younger generation of women and men to understand that there have been a mass of women practitioners or teachers who have really contributed enough to the field so that they can look up to them as role models. So my little contribution to the field is that see at people like you as role models and bring your work to as many people as we can. The idea is also to develop this as a video series, but at the same time, we are also trying to develop a coffee table book with writing your biographies in that book and make it accessible to as many people as we can. We have now completed 35 interactions, so I'm really excited to reach 50 as soon as possible. So I hope you are fine with this conversation, and I hope you are also fine that we are recording this for future documentation and dissemination, and we are going to write from the conversation. Thank you so much, Amita.
Yes, you're welcome. And actually, I really appreciate your taking the lead in this matter, because I feel very strongly the same, that women do not talk about themselves. Women do not write about their own accomplishments, and that the future generation of women leaders needs role models to look up to and get confidence to forge ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So we are today with Dr. Professor Amita Sinha, and she's going to talk a little bit more about it. But this conversation is more, candid kind of thing. So we are going to just flow, and we would like to start with Amita. As in, where did she really got architecture into her life? I mean, we want to bring you back to your school days, and where did you study and how did you decide to do architecture?
Well, I was all of 17 years old when I qualified in the joint entrance examination, and that is to the Indian Institutes of Technology. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I chose physics because I really liked physics when I was in my high school. But it so happened that I had developed a severe allergy to mercury. And so the first day I walked, into the lab, into a chem lab, I was severely allergic. And I just did not know, how I could continue. And then a student dean suggested, did you think about architecture? And without really thinking, I said, yes, I'm going to join architecture. So I landed in architecture without really knowing what the field was about. And it took me many years to understand architecture as a discipline which is multifaceted. It integrates aesthetics, art, aesthetics, science, technology, humanities, social sciences, and environmental sciences.
Many facets, huh? So where did you do your architecture from? And just to understand, during your undergraduate, I mean, now we are all involved in academics, and we do realize that we are not really talking gender explicitly, gender issues when we are dealing with architecture and planning course or urban design course. It's there, but it is not there particularly in the way teachers deal with the class. We tend to be equal to all, and I also experienced it during my undergraduate and postgraduate. We never felt that, oh, I am a girl, I cannot do this, or I should not be doing this. What was your experience in undergraduate, postgraduate that time? And where were you?
So I joined the campus of Kharagpur, IIT Kharagpur, because my parents lived in Jamshedpur. My father used to work for Tata Iron and Steel Company, and Kharagpur was like only 2.5 hours away. So it was close to my hometown. And the campus was kind of small, it was about 2,000 students at that time. And I'm talking about 1976. And yes, it was heavily, dominated by male professors and male students. Women, female students were very, very few. But architecture being somewhat different, I think, in the sense that it was not. I got a degree of bachelor's in architectural engineering, but architecture seemed, I think, much more open in terms of the different interests, a person has. So it so happened that in a batch of 13 students, 4 of us were girls. So yes, but the rest of the campus, all other disciplines, where I would say 99% male. And it was that was not a that was not a easy environment because the cultures are very different.
Yes.
And it seems almost like girls and boys then have the separate social spheres. But because of the cohort in my own batch, I think that was a support system that pulled all of us through the next 5 years. Also, architecture is kind of hard at first to figure out exactly, what it is about. In the sense, it's about everything, right?
Yes.
And so, it takes quite a bit of training and skills and confidence to acquire, those creative powers are within you, but something has to trigger that,
Yes.
and so that takes time.
So during your, let's say, final year of your undergraduate and postgraduate, when you were really going to get into the real life, built environment and find your way out in life, did you really realize that being a woman or a girl in those years was something different than being, someone who you did not realize before when you were studying? Of course, in IIT, still when we look at beyond architecture, the girls' number is still very bleak. Huh?
Right.
So
yes,
that's a very sorry state, but at least in architecture, it has moved quite ahead in terms of gender parity, at least in the schools. But when we look at those numbers, and look at practicing architects and teaching architects, and researching architects, the number gets diminishing. So, did you really feel, or when did you really feel first time that I am a woman in the profession, and there are certain ways to do the profession or conduct myself? Was there ever this kind of situation, or you never really had this situation?
well, even in the undergraduate program, I began understanding that me and my friends, female friends, our approach was different. We were much more concerned, about social relationships.
Yes.
We were interested, in outdoor spaces, the link between indoor and outdoor spaces. We were interested in gardens and parks. And several times I remember professors said, "Oh, this is a very feminine, this is very feminine.
Yes.
Your design is very feminine." And I could not really figure out, what they were saying. Because we were drawing the same lines, right? I mean, we're coming up with forms which didn't look that different. But I guess what really was different was this interest in social, psychological, and
Yes.
cultural issues. and not just form for form's sake.
So how did you decide about post-undergraduate, what to do and what kind of specialization? Because as you rightly mentioned in the beginning, architecture almost involves everything, and that's the beauty, which I also realized while doing a lot of literature review on the various women who have been diversifying in various aspects of built environment. And it's not surprising that it is so inclusive and yet so excluding when we define architecture, which is so, I will say so meanly looked at as, building. And that's many a times called as architecture by most time the practitioners, not really in academia or research. But then how did you take a decision on what to do after undergraduate, and where did you land up?
So I joined as an intern in Stein, Doshi and Bhalla. It's a firm in Delhi.
Yes.
And I guess it broke up a decade later.
Much later, so I'm your junior at SDB in Ahmedabad. I also started with SDB Ahmedabad.
Yes, and it was a nice office. I remember Mr. Stein taking a personal interest, in young interns. He actually had time to spend with them, and we used to have these, 2 sessions, tea sessions in the morning and in the afternoons. And again, he would talk about his philosophy. He was a modernist,
Yes,
but he was very sensitive, I think, to climate, and he was sensitive to integration of architecture and landscape. So I spent the 2 years mostly, doing details. I really didn't develop, any strong portfolio while working, but I think I imbibed from the office the kind of attention to detailing that Joseph Allen Stein brought, to his designs. And then I realized also that I needed to study further, and I went to Virginia Tech to get my master's, and that degree was actually given in like 1 year. So then it wasn't enough, 1 year in graduate program was not enough. So I decided to apply for a PhD program, and I spent the next 5 years at University of California, Berkeley, and I got my PhD in 1989, and I did my dissertation on low-income housing in and around Lucknow area, and that was, I think, a very good opportunity to understand social and cultural issues in housing and the transformations that were taking place. So in a way, you could say the interest I had in people and environment, interest that I developed during the undergraduate years, then came to full fruition while doing the PhD work.
So interesting, because in 1989 I joined. I wish I had met you that time, so I would have, saved a lot of my time to understand, where to find my own interest within architecture, because it takes quite a lot of time to figure out, because the field is so vast, what you would like to do. And I'm still struggling and fighting in my own fraternity to really find people, those who accept water as a field of architecture itself. I mean, water is not yet taught, and I have been working in the water sector for quite some time, and I still don't get access to architecture and planning schools so easily to really see that water is part of architecture. Just to give you an idea, it could have saved a lot of time if I had met Amita in 1989. So anyway, just to move on from there, because you moved from India to US, because we are also talking about women in the field, did you really notice any kind of difference in the way women are treated, or women are, juggling with their profession in India, or women are treated in US, or juggling? What kind of patterns or similarities you found in both the countries in terms of women in architecture?
That is universal. Women trying to juggle, life, personal and professional lives. And, you know, in no part of the world, women have it easy. So I would say that unless the government, like in Scandinavian governments, have a very good support system,
Yes.
professional daycare, um, uh, which is affordable. Women are not, it's not easy for them to advance and give the time they really need, to both their personal life and the professional life.
So was it same in India and US when you went there? I mean, in terms of the way women used to.
Well, I noticed my professors who were women were having a really difficult time in Berkeley, trying to, have a very active research career, writing books, and teaching, and being, part of the academic community, but at the same time, being, taking care of the young children. Some women, were not able to do both, and they had to make really hard choices.
So how did Amita make her hard choices in those years, if I may ask?
Well, I got my PhD, and then I joined University of Illinois in 1989. And this was in the Department of Landscape Architecture. I didn't really have a degree in landscape architecture, but I realized that what I was doing, the research I had done in housing, really overlapped with landscape. So I came here to teach social issues, and to learn the technical aspects of the field. As a young professor, it's not easy because you also have to have a very active, publication record, and there is a tenure system in the United States, which is based on you publish or perish. There's no other way out. So it is like, it is really, really, you really have to spend, all that time just working. And I have to say that, somehow I pulled through. And I don't have children, but I did have, older parents, and my parents, or rather my father, came to live with me after my mother passed away. And again, it wasn't really easy. There is something called Family Leave Act, in which, you can take leave, but you're not paid. So United States, is really way behind other countries in terms of making it easy for women to take care of their families and at the same time, work full time.
Yeah, that's a very important aspect which you raised, and that also brings me to another question which is related to profession here. And because you are talking about United States not doing well, and I'm assuming you are comparing it more with the Scandinavian countries, which are very good in these facilities, and also some European countries like Germany, Netherlands, and but if you look at the United States system of the security in terms of let's say social security, but other facilities, but at the same time, being woman, was there any additional facilities which was given, which you said no? But if I look at with the reflection to India, in those days and even today, I personally don't see that we have any additional facility for women to really do those extra layers or extra benefits we have in the profession. I mean, you rightly mentioned publish or perish, and that applies to almost, it's a gender neutral, situation.
I feel in India there is a support system. This is from the vantage point of living here. There is a support system in India, and many, families are able to give support to the young wives, to the young parents, if they happen to live, in the same city or in the same neighborhood. And so I think women in India draw on that support in order to be able to survive, but you cannot take it for granted.
Yes, that is true.
Really, so there's got to be some organized way of helping women, take care of young children and elderly parents.
Yes, so in your case, you did mention that you did take care of your parents, and that comes as kind of a balancing act between your career. And so have you been full-time academics, doing full-time academics as well as research, or you are also engaging in other consultancy works? Because in architecture, that is also quite appreciated, and it is also quite fulfilling for most of the professionals. So are you doing all three of them?
No, but in US academia, consulting is, we're not really allowed to consult.
Okay.
Beyond, a very small percentage of your time can be given to consulting. I mean, first and foremost, your obligation is to the university. So
Yeah.
I taught for 29 years, and during that time, I had a very active research program, and instead of practicing or consulting, I did what is called a service. That is, I organized studios in India, and I took students from here, from the United States, and we did workshops. And so that way, we got understanding of what the issues are in the real world and how to develop, grounded solutions. So since retirement, I've continued my active research program. I do not do consulting, but I am engaged in, again, real projects. For instance, right now I'm working on Ayodhya, and also in Vrindavan, and these are very important places, pilgrim towns, where things are happening, and unless development happens in a way that is not destructive of the heritage and of the environment, and that's why studies research is very important, because what will happen is that the profession will reap the benefits of whatever openings there are, in the public sector, by the state, or wealthy, philanthropists. But research is what is needed in order for interventions to happen in a way that are not destructive, as I said, of the past.
No, it is also quite often seen that many women scholars whom I'm coming across in architecture, and into this search for interacting with them, I come across where they are highly interested in taking up research activities. And this is, I think, something also very genetic. I feel that we are so interested in details of why things are happening, and also this social knack, I must say, where we are deeply concerned about many things, which also clings our work towards research, and then we try to find out how it can be woven into academics and even practice for that matter. So from housing, you move to landscape. Sorry, go ahead, Amita.
Yes, I would just want to reiterate what you were just saying, that women seem to feel a greater responsibility towards contributing to the public good.
Yes, rightly mentioned. They feel more concerned, and then they also feel more there's more sense of responsibility to contribute, rather than going with the aspiration that, oh yes, I want to do this and the building should be like this. More Uh, I don't know whether we should use the word masculine, because you did mention in your undergraduate, you were pointed out that these are feminine approach. So then there is definitely a masculine approach to looking at things and development, which we see at most of the places. But let us leave that argument or discussion on masculine for some other day. I would like to know a little bit more about some life-changing decisions you made, or moments, probably a few or one, which shapes you what you are today, because you have
So
achieved so much.
Joining landscape architecture, I guess, was one of those life-changing decisions. And I would say that it's a decision that I made, but it was because I got an offer to teach in landscape architecture. And I am very glad that I joined landscape architecture, because I feel that I am able to do what I really had always wanted to do, which is to understand and teach design as a social discipline.
Yeah.
And teaching and doing research in the United States also gave me, I think, kind of a vantage point to look back at my own background, cultural background, and to view that objectively, because I'm not in the midst, I'm not there, living it. In a sense, I nobody changes. I think, the childhood socialization and experience remain with you all your life. But if you're physically removed, and if you're in a milieu which is very different, then it makes it, I think, easier in some ways to dispassionately research.
More objectively.
And so I really, I think, was able to do research on cultural landscapes, to see, to understand culture from a outsider, I would say, ethic point of view.
Ethic point of view, yes.
And that is, I wouldn't say it is a critical examination. It's a sympathetic attempt. It's an attempt to sympathetically understand, what culture is about, and its, its strengths, but also its weaknesses.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you do these research now back in India, and you are involved, and already 3 decades have gone past in between, do you see any change in the way women are performing in the field? I mean, we are here amid to the situation, so we see the change to be quite slow and gradual. But how do you see now? Because I'm sure you are working with younger people in India, and you are also getting in contact with a lot of schools here. You're working with them. So what kind of change do you see from then and now in the academic environment, and also in the work environment?
I think there's a lot more confidence. Women have a lot more confidence than they had in the past. At least the time when I was growing up, and now they're able to strike out on their own, and they don't really, need, I think, as much as they used to have a collaborative relationship in their professional life. I guess many firms still today are headed by couples.
Yes.
And it is, I guess, just easier, to be able to do that, to handle clients, and to do the creative work. But I really do notice that women are becoming more and more confident, and this was bound to happen. because parents, I think, are now also investing more in their girls, in the girl children,
Yes.
women, offsprings than we did in the past.
Yeah. So there is an interesting discussion which in my research also I am trying to classify those who I am interacting, that women who are working with spouse, women who are working independently, women who are doing transdisciplinary activity or research and all. And there are different viewpoints about whether having a spouse from the same field is beneficial or it is bouncing, and I myself has that kind of a situation, so I have a different opinion in that, and we all have very I will say tailored situation in how we perform and what decisions we make. And but interesting, what you mentioned is, at least now when there are couples practicing, at least women probably have more say than they would have had in the past, right from our legends who have practiced and we had never come to know. And even my own teachers, I never came to know my male teachers that their better halves were actually equally qualified, but not really the face of the organization, or not even coming to teach at SEPT. I'm talking about that experience. So let me just move on to a little bit interesting question, because these questions are actually laid out after doing a little bit of literature review and also my own personal interest, because I'm not really taking it as a hardcore scientific work, but more to make it more accessible to understand women in the field. Uh, did you ever really look up to some ideals in the field? And if you had, how did they, and who are they, one or two, and how did they influence your approach to work? Because I really struggled to look at some ideals, because from the very beginning, when I get into their understanding their work, but at the same time, when I start looking at them as human beings, I mean, the greatest of the people, the moment I come to know at the background, there was a woman who was never acknowledged, I really lose respect for those people, and I lose interest in their work as well. So that's why I'm posing these questions, because it's important to look up to somebody. But for that somebody, I mean, also in women, that is the reason I'm doing it, that we missed women role models when we started our career. I mean, that applies to you also for that matter. So did you really have any, I mean, of course, male role models are equally important, but did you had any role models, or do you still have role models whom you look up to or who you really appreciate, who influenced your work?
So I observed the science when I was working in that office for 2 years, and Margaret Stein, wife of Joseph Allen Stein,
Yes.
had a mezzanine floor to herself, and she was very interested, I think, in a lot of things. But I remember working with her on carpets in the Kashmir Conference Complex that was coming up at that time. I didn't really get to know her very well, but I did notice that she held her own in these design decisions about interior decor. Then when I joined the program, the PhD program at UC Berkeley, two of my professors were female, and that was a long period of association. 5 years is a long period of association, and I didn't get to know them very well. And I, in a way, you could say I modeled my research, after their own research interests. So Claire Cooper Marcus was a geographer from England who had a joint appointment in architecture and landscape architecture. And she wrote very influential books. I think the most popular among her books are People Places. But she also wrote a book called House is the Mirror of Self. And it's an extremely interesting book. And I influenced me deeply. Galen Kranz is a sociologist and she she had studied at University of Chicago in the sociology department, and she introduced me to qualitative research, to ethnography. She wrote a book called Writing for Ethnography, which writing ethnography for architects, not writing for ethnography for architects. And that is a book I follow in my own research.
Interesting, because when I was introduced to Ian McHarg, I could really not go beyond him for a long time. I mean, initially it was Christopher Alexander and then Ian McHarg, and I was like, okay, this is the ultimate. I could really, read about overall urban landscape. You can talk about it. But let us come back to the way you have conducted your life, and it's been a wonderful journey, I'm sure. But some physical and psychological aspects where you really felt that, yes, being woman in the profession has made a difference. And you started with that also in our conversation today. But I would also like to know the kind of challenges you personally faced being woman in the field, both physically and psychological, or any other professional.
You mean in academic life? Because
entire academic profession, student life. Yeah.
I would go as far as to say that sexism and misogyny are universal.
Yes.
I believe strong. I mean, I've come across it again and again, and that is simply, it's very hard to resist, to fight it, and you have to have, I think, again, a good support system to be able to fight back. And I attribute it to, I don't know why that is the case. I think the more successful women are, the more harder it gets for them. It's at some point, it becomes easier to fight the battles you have. But I don't know why we have to fight so many battles.
Yes, we have to fight more battles actually than a same counterpart male for the same work or same steps of life.
And I think it is something innate, it's like, there are, of course, a lot of men who have helped me in my career.
Yes, of course.
Starting with my father, and the person who hired me, Vincent Balafiore, in landscape architecture. Landscape architecture is a very wide profession.
Yes.
And discipline in the United States. But he took a chance. He hired me because he was working with National Park Service. And National Park Service at that time was working on Buddhist sites in India.
Mm-hmm.
So I come along, with a PhD on India, and it seemed like a very good fit. But there was hesitation, I think, on hiring someone from another part of the world, someone, a brown woman.
We have extra layers, apart from gender, ethnicity, nationality.
Yes. And I guess he took a chance, and he supported me in the first few years. But then, as I said, the more successful you get, the more the battles there are.
It gets tougher and tougher. But have you realized in that case where, at least I'm observing also from my personal experience in nearly of 3 decades, that while battling this, many times, many women who are really rising to the top, or let's say the leadership roles, who can really change the way things are, they have, many of them have also internalized the masculinity which they were fighting, which is a natural process. When you're fighting something, it becomes, part of you also. And there have been many occasions where I have actually gone to platforms and where I had to really say that, why do I feel that all of these people are talking more like men than like women? And I feel that this is part of the internalization problem, because how long can you fight and how more can you fight? Have you experienced that kind of situation, or not personally, but do you think that this is happening? And if not, or if yes, what is your take on it?
Well, I can only speak for myself.
Of course.
I don't really like to play the game,
Yeah.
I don't really like to be part of uh, someone else's project of self-advancement. As I said, I am really interested in furthering public good uh, rather than, scratching someone's back and getting ahead in that way. So I think that is partly the reason why I've not had it easy. And I feel that women who compromise have an easier time. So we have to kind of carve out, a sphere in which we strive for autonomy, and if you're able to carve out that sphere, we can do, we have the freedom to do what we really want to do and to act as if we really want to act. But if you if you cannot carve out that sphere, then you'll be always like at loggerheads. You, as I said, you then become part of someone else's, agenda.
Yeah.
And it's usually masculine agenda because there's far more ambition among men.
Yes.
There's much more of, the need for getting power and asserting it and controlling other people.
Yeah. In addition to that, there are always discussion which gets under the carpet many a times, because, because most of the organizations are led by still men, whether it is academic or practicing organizations. For a long time, there has been also quite a lot of exploitation of women professionals, both the, academics and professional life. To the extent of even women being silenced, or many women also take advantage of this, and many women are also using that as their step to their own progress, and so it's both ways. But do you really see that happening among the women, that they see this as an opportunity when they are in an office, and then they see that yes, there is more inclination towards them and they take advantage of it? There are many cases. We have seen many situations where young women have really shot up to their career, or I mean, it's not about naming shaming, but these are challenges where many women, as we are talking about compromise, and I'm using the word internalizing this whole battle, and they just flow with what's going on there. But do you think those kind of situations further weaken the whole battle of identity of women in the profession, or it strengthens it?
But there is a lot more awareness now, and there is academic discourse, on gender discrimination in the design profession. My friend Catherine Anthony has written a very interesting book on gender discrimination in the United States and the design profession. So now that we're at this point where you can look back at works of great architects like Louis Kahn, or Walter Burley Griffin, and understand that the women who were working with them, who were collaborating with them, had a much greater share, like Mahoney Griffin. So, with that academic discourse, women, I think now understand, that they have to be more assertive and about their rights and about demanding their share of recognition. Having said that, yes, every every situation is different. Cultures are different. I think in the United States, at least, women are a lot more independent as compared with India. And so they have, I think, the confidence and the freedom to speak their mind.
Yeah, that's true. We are still not 10% in the practicing field, but as I mentioned that many women have actually taken research and academia as their mainstream work. And that also is a discussion which I think some other time we are going to take on about the whole definition of architecture. It also needs to be redefined. For that matter, if many women are into academics and many women are into research and doing research in built environment, are they still not be considered or recognized as architect? In my opinion, they should be, but unfortunately, the definition of architects and architecture is so limited to building that what I call in Hindi is a daira, or the line where we can say that these are the architects gets very, very shrunk, and then many people are out of it. And for good, I mean, I feel very good that I'm out of it and I'm working in the water. And, and I feel water as an integral part of architecture. But I think this can be only done by women for that matter, because more and more I'm meeting women, I feel that they have diversified a lot with the very need that they feel more for the society, they feel more for the environment. And that's where they have also gone beyond building construction and looking at, or redefining scope of architecture for that matter. And I think that's where I bring my second last question to you. And that's about, imagine a situation, and because you are traversing across India and also doing a lot of projects. So this question is universal, but imagine a situation reverse, and where a city has more number of women architects. This is just a hypothetical situation. More leading women architects and more decision-making planners and designers. How do you think our cities would look than what they are looking today? Will they be same, or if not, what will be the difference you can visualize?
Oh, a women-friendly city would be really a great place to live in. And women can design women-friendly cities because they understand what women's needs are. So I imagine, a city like that to be one in which, there is the separation between private and public life is not so stark. That we are not isolated, in our individual, households, that the public spaces are shared. There's a sense of community. The city will have a lot more services, I think, for the family, be very family friendly place. It will be a safe place. There'll be eyes on the street, as Jane Jacobs, Death and Life of Great American Cities, that classic showed us, what it could be like. And it will be safe. It will be, it will have rich public life. It will have the spaces will be able to support communities. And be also a place where nature is respected. The streams and the rivers and the parks will be not degraded as we see now, in cities, especially in crowded cities of Asia and Africa. That there'll be healthy, systems, ecosystems, and this intertwining of natural and cultural systems will happen in a way that the urban habitat, as I said, will be healthy. It will ensure equitable access to all, and it will be, I guess, really rooted in respect for nature.
Interesting, because this is something which is almost getting echoed from most of the girls whom I am interacting with. And, it's more when we talk about women friendly, we already talk about more inclusivity than it is today, whether it is by gender, whether it is by class, whether it is by creatures for that matter. As you rightly mentioned, nature will take a center stage. There will be more public realms for that matter. Very interesting. And this echoes, and you started this conversation from the very point when you mentioned that, this feminine approach to looking at things, and also more holistic approach to looking at things. Although I'm sure you and I, we don't wish to replace all male architects by female architects, but just to get an idea what we are missing in our, habitats. And if those can be integrated in the way we design our neighborhoods and cities, and that's the purpose of asking this question, no matter who does it. So that's there. That brings me to my last question, which has two sub-questions, and it's more a message from Amita to the younger generation. And the first message is for what it is to be, a woman, or what it is to be a good human being in this profession can do. And importantly, how to engender this profession. These are my two set of questions and message for the younger generation.
Well, the first thing I would say, the most important thing to me is sincerity. To be yourself and to believe in yourself, and believe in what you're doing, and to invest also in the organization that you're working for. So sincerity and hard work together will take you far. And do not think that impression management, there's a lot of it in the design profession. The image is very important. You have to look a certain way. You have to act in a certain way to assure the world that you are a creative person. Don't think that is the end of it. That's there is much more, to being a professional than looking a professional.
That is so important you mentioned. So, and how do we engender the profession? What is your take on it for the younger generation? Because there is a lot of improvement. You can see that in 3-4 decades of your own career, but still we are far away from engendering it.
Well, I think look at your own past, at your own culture, and not be swayed by images from the West. Yes, now we are living in a global world, but at the same time, you can be proud of who you are and where you've come from. Do not be ashamed of your past, of your cultural past. There is a lot of richness there, and there are a lot of the inspiration for making a better world can come from the past, I believe. So we should practice in a way that is not denying the authenticity and the specificity of the place and of people living in that place.
So it's a very important message, which is more about, again, going back to more gender neutral way of looking at things, I must say, because I'm studying more on gender aspects. I'm bringing that summary from you because it's important to look at each other more as human beings than gender. And I do mention every time in all conversations, definitely I would like to wish to live a day when we don't have to discuss gender. It is just that we are human beings.
But I think we should. I think we should be respectful. Gender is a social construction, of course,
Yes.
But when men and women are, they are different. There are innate,
Yes, of course.
differences, and those differences, I think, lead us on very different trajectories of in life. Um, and we just take pride in the fact that you're a woman, that you can nurture, that you can give care, that you can build relationships, that you can care for the natural world.
Absolutely. And I think we are only talking about male and female, and there are other genders also. So that is where we can actually talk about we being good human beings in the profession. And we can talk about more on what to be a good professional or good human being in the professional, and where does development stand there, and how far you are more, nature centric or ecocentric in your approach of thinking towards the society. So thank you so much, Amita, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I really tried to be as easy from my end, but I'm sure there were some tough questions, but I really think that you enjoyed answering them. Thank you so much, Amita.